Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's BDF44. So, I want to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves today. Loosely talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves because, as usual, I'm talking about a squad that is not my own, that I haven't been watching any of, but I pay attention to the stats, so on and so forth. I think you guys pretty much know what to look for when you come here. But there's something that's brewing in Minnesota that's kind of curious to me. Um, it's not anything incredibly pressing, but you're starting to see some players kind of come along on their roster. And with that comes the question mark, I guess, of what direction they want to go in going forward. The first player I want to talk about in the Minnesota Timberwolves is Malik Beasley. He's really broken out fantastically well to start this season. He had a really good season last year as well. He's really established himself since leaving Denver as a three-point scorer in this league who can really bring some good production to the table when given big minutes. And now that he's getting those big minutes, he's doing his thing. Anthony Edwards is playing behind him right now, and although Anthony Edwards is coming along slowly in his rookie season, there's nothing wrong with him. He's healthy and seems to be doing everything they're asking him to do. But it's just he's a rookie, and unlike some of the other rookies that are really taking off like LaMelo Ball and Tyrese Halliburton, he's kind of coming along a little slower. His role is a bit more unclear than those guys, of course, and because he's a shooting guard, he doesn't have the ball in his hands as much as maybe those two guys do. I still like what I've seen from him, though, but it's going to take a couple years for you to really see what the Minnesota Timberwolves and what many other teams saw in him being the first pick in the draft. Um, so, I guess for me, looking at rookies, I don't really get too excited about a player's year one, whether they break out and go crazy or whether they do nothing. Because I've seen rookies do nothing in their first year. Two names that come to mind: Kobe Bryant and Dirk Nowitzki. Literally would not, and it's a million other players. Of course, you can think of a trillion yourself, I'm sure, but that didn't really have good starts to their careers. And I've seen guys like Michael Carter Williams bust out the gate and have a legendary rookie season, and then kind of fall into a playing role in the league. So I don't get excited about rookie seasons like that. I don't think you can sit up here and say anybody's a bust or not going to make it until probably like around year 5 or 6, to be completely honest with you. You look at a guy like Julius Randle, all the stuff that he's showing people in New York, I knew he had it in him, but we were going through the development stages of Juju, and a lot of the stuff that he's showing in New York, he had to work his way to this. And this is what, year 7? A lot of people were saying he was not a bust, but I had underachieved to a degree, or was just going to be a stats player, no real winning to him, that kind of thing. And you can see now he's breaking out. He's going to be an all-star this year, and if he keeps this up all year long, he's going to be a top 7, 8 MVP candidate, if you ask me. I mean, he's really having a breakout year, and you can clearly see that it took some time. So I don't expect any different from a lot of rookies, and Anthony Edwards is one of those guys. With Malik Beasley being in front of him, I don't know if they're going to want to move him into the starting lineup at some point, but you have to wonder if Malik Beasley is now somebody that the Timberwolves look to shop. Because even though Malik Beasley is a winning type of player, in my opinion, you could win with a guy like that on your roster. I don't think that Minnesota gets the most out of Anthony Edwards until Malik Beasley is no longer taking those minutes from him, whether he's starting or not. Malik Beasley is just simply too productive of a player to be in that position with a player drafted that high on the roster. I guess that's what I'm trying to tell you guys. Another guy by the name of Jarrett Culver, a young guy just drafted. Same exact thing with him and Anthony Edwards. Both drafted high. It's going to take a long time for them to really come into their own. But a guy like Jarrett Culver has big games. That's the problem with a guy like Jarrett Culver. He'll have a massive game and then a couple subpar games. So the inconsistency is a part of the situation when it comes to him. So you can't really move him into the starting role as the shooting guard either, even though that's where he's going to be as he grows. So they have a logjam at the shooting guard spot is the moral of the story. And I understand that Malik Beasley may have some legal issues looming. I do not know any details, but it looks like that is on the horizon. Does Minnesota want to keep him on the roster for the beginning of that process? Minnesota's not a winning team, so probably doesn't hurt them to really do anything. And when you're considering the fact they're in Minnesota, it's harder to get guys there. When you have guys that are productive, particularly on decent contracts like he is, it's probably good to just ride it out and see what happens. It's not like they can just count on guys flying into Minnesota and wanting to be there. So situation's a bit murky when you have a small market, and that's just what their situation is. Look at another guy on that roster that I like is Ricky Rubio. They brought him back. Of course, he started his career there, was drafted there, and has turned himself into a real elite playmaker, in my opinion. He's definitely an elite playmaker. He's not elite in other areas per se, but when it comes to that passing and getting guys involved and all that stuff that I love very much, yeah, he's definitely one of the top names that come up when you talk about that kind of thing. Pure point guards, real ones. So having him should make them a little better. But you have to wonder. If he's the future for that position. When you give an understanding that Jared Culver can play some one as well, and it's probably better defensively. Someone that I'm paying attention to as well on that team is Naz Reid, and he's really, to be completely honest with you, what prompted me to have this much of a curiosity to speak on this topic, because I see Naz Reid starting to scratch at the surface of being a competent defensive and offensive player. He's the kind of guy right now where you're giving him 16 minutes a game and he's giving you 25 minutes worth of production in that short amount of time. What that shows me is he's like a Montrezl Harrell, like a Bobby Portis, Julius Randle, but a lesser, like early Julius Randle, that type of thing, where they don't need a whole lot of plays run for them and they don't need a lot of minutes to be extremely effective. And when you do give them a lot of minutes, they become all-star caliber, teetering on all-star level players. Naz Reid was just drafted. He's once again another young player on that Minnesota squad. I think he was drafted maybe 2 years ago and is starting to get his footing in this league. He blocks shots. He's consistent no matter whether he's scoring a lot or rebounding a lot. He's definitely going to get you a block or two a game. That's really considerable given the fact they're not a very good defensive team. But he scores at a high clip for the minutes that he's given, and he rebounds at a high clip for the minutes that he's given. So when you consider those three very, very important statistical categories, you're looking at a player at the center position that you definitely want to give more minutes to. That's going to be a trade piece, if nothing else. Bring forth value if you get the most out of him. And it seems like he's developing very well in Minnesota. So this is where it brings me. Karl-Anthony Towns. You don't mention the Minnesota Timberwolves without mentioning Karl-Anthony Towns. And I did neglect to mention D'Angelo Russell as well, who is starting at the point guard position, if I'm not mistaken. So you see the logjam there with him and Ricky Rubio. Now you have two high-level players playing that same position. Of course, you're going to start D'Angelo, but Ricky could start as well. And they're both very good at passing the rock and things of that nature. Neither of which are very good defensively, which Jared Culver is. So basically what I see in that Minnesota team is a lot of log jams at just about every position with the players that they have log jamming, having different strengths to one another and different weaknesses to one another. What you also have is guys who are young, like the Boston situation several years ago that I referred to a lot, playing behind guys who have probably as much talent as them or less talent than them. And they're playing behind these guys because they're a couple years behind them in just years on this earth and in the league. So when you talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves, what I'm seeing is a bunch of seeds, so to speak, starting to bloom. And some of the more seasoned players that they have being pretty productive, but not productive enough to make them a competitive team. So what does that tell me? the Minnesota Timberwolves have trade pieces that they should probably consider using to make themselves better. And some of those trade pieces are not the ones on the back of their bench, but more so some of the guys that are getting more of the minutes. Ricky Rubio, Malik Beasley, and yes, Karl Anthony Towns. Now, Karl Anthony Towns, the thing about Karl Anthony Towns is he's a bona fide superstar. Ain't nobody gonna get on this channel and argue that he's not a top 12 player in this league, because I actually believe he is. The problem I have with Karl Anthony Towns is his conditioning. That's it. That's literally it. I think he's a fantastic offensive player. He's a fantastic defensive presence, but he doesn't run the floor as well as some of the more elite centers in this league. And when I talk about players in that top 10, top 12, whatever, that top dozen players, Karl is the guy, him and probably Joel. Those are the guys that come to mind at first, who I really don't count on to stay healthy all season long. Now, they're the type of centers that you can keep on the floor for 48 minutes because they can shoot like a guard. You know what I mean? You're not worried about them not having a space to play on your team based on being big guys like a Hassan Whiteside or somebody like that. You're not going to worry about that because they're going to be on the floor and they're going to shoot. So you're not going to have spacing issues. Fantastic shot blockers, of course. But can they stay healthy? Me as a avid fantasy basketball player, I've drafted Karl Anthony Towns every year, and every time I find myself saying, why did I take this dude? Why? And it has nothing to do with the production that he gives me when he's healthy, because when he's healthy, again, he lives up to it. He's elite. He's a top tier player in this game. But there's more times than not where you find yourself saying, man, is he missing another game? Are we gonna miss another week? His conditioning is just never where you want it to be for his ADP to be that high. And so if it translates that way in fantasy sports, I can't help but think it translates that way to the basketball floor. Now again, Minnesota's situation is much more tricky than, say, my team, because if we were to get rid of Anthony Davis, we have the Los Angeles Lakers moniker and name to help us believe in at least the opportunity of getting another superstar. Minnesota can't just give away Karl Anthony Towns and expect to get another A-list superstar at some point. That may not happen for them. So it's not like they can be as frivolous with things as maybe I would want them to be with my team if this were the case. But I look at Naz Reid and I'm saying he's definitely not taking Karl Anthony Towns' spot by any stretch of the imagination. But he is somebody that gives me a great deal of insurance for Karl Anthony Towns going forward. And if I need that much insurance for a player that holds that much value in the league, chances are I probably should try to flip him for something that gives me back the value that I need for him. And he can get you quite a bit. So I guess the question is, and I do not have an answer for this because of the particulars of the Minnesota situation, I think the question is, how much do you believe in Karl Anthony Towns staying healthy? And if you don't believe in him staying healthy, is it a good idea to try to see if you can get something incredible for him? Now, if you're not getting something incredible for him, then you do not do a deal. That's the moral of the story. I do not devalue him based on my question marks about his health. I'm simply telling you guys that they do have insurance for him, and that insurance is needed. So if it is needed, then try to bring back something huge so that you don't need necessarily insurance for that much of a player. For example, throw any name out there. James Harden. Do the Rockets need insurance for James Harden? Do you need a guy that does what James Harden does because you don't believe him to stay healthy all season long? No. You don't. Do you see the Golden State Warriors drafting LaMelo Ball because they're concerned about Steph Curry staying healthy? No, you don't. Do you see the Milwaukee Bucks trying to find some lengthy, long player to play the three? Are they throwing a bunch of money at a Brandon Ingram or something like that just in case Giannis goes? No. Why? Because players of that value, you usually don't need insurance for. Karl is one of the only guys in the league that rated that high that you legitimately wonder if he's going to play 60 games a year. And for me, if I'm a GM, that's a bit of an uncomfortable space to be in, you know? Now, there are more uncomfortable spaces to be in. Don't get it twisted. Having no Karl Anthony Towns is a lot worse than having Karl Anthony Towns not as healthy as you need him to be. Please don't get it twisted. There's levels to this. But what I'm saying to you is, if Karl is going to get hurt again, and the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to still find themselves in the cellar and still trying to pick up more and more draft picks to, players that need to develop and all these different things that are not coming together cohesively, and you just got Karl sitting there making $180 million or $200 million a year, but not getting you to the playoffs and not making it through the season, how many years do you want to do this? I guess is what I'm saying. And for a team who went through the tenure with the big ticket, my favorite player as a kid, Kevin Garnett, and paid him $500 million and only got a first round trip and first round exit each and every year for it, doesn't really seem like that's the path you want to go for this era of your tenure in this league. Now, they play in the Wild Wild West. That makes it even worse. Not only do they have a small market, but they're stuck in the better conference, so that makes it hard. But I think at the end of the day, the Minnesota Timberwolves have done a pretty good job drafting over the last several years. With what they have, they've done good. And they've done a pretty good job developing guys. They've even made some pretty good trades. So it's not like they're dead in the water making bad moves. But you just got this big, valuable centerpiece that's just not available when you need them. And he's not getting you over the hump. So, yeah, I'm legitimately at that space where I'm asking, is it time to trade him? Is it time? Is this a good time to start looking? Can you get James Harden for Karl Anthony Towns? The answer is I think so. So, do you make that particular trade? Probably not. But that's the type of haul we're talking about. That's what Karl can get you. So, yeah, no conclusions made here, just questions. My name is BDF44. Thank you guys for watching.